Hello, Indonesia. I'm very happy to reconnect with you, even from distance, and to speak about the new DIETRICH skin diver today. Well, I'm feeling good because I just came back from holiday, so it's a nice moment. We had a bit of a difficult summer in Europe with a lot of heat in the south, a lot of cold in the north, and I was a lot in the cold, so it was really good to have some warmth and to see some sun. And happily in Switzerland, we have, at least for now, almost no quarantine. We are quite free. People are getting vaccinated, and life is going on almost normally. So I know it's not the same thing in every part of the world, and I feel for you because I think the situation for you is not that easy. But yeah, we are quite happy here, and I'm also happy to go back to work and to start the new year. So the story behind the skin diver is a very simple one. I was, since long time, been wanting to do some classic items of a watch history. But I never did, at least not for DIETRICH. And the skin diver was my first attempt to revisit one classic and give it DIETRICH personality. I did it with Kai from the Matic blog, with whom I am collaborating. And he has a deep knowledge of the market, and he prepared me a briefing on which I worked. And we developed this product together. And I think it was very important to have this back and forth in doing the product because, again, as a designer, the most important thing is the briefing, is putting the right question on the table and answering it the right way. And it was a balance exercise because doing a classic can be very boring. I mean, we see a lot of classics these days, or reinterpretation of divers and explorers and every kind of classic items. But putting some new inspiration in it is a real challenge. And I'm quite happy with the result. But the story was just this, the meeting between us both and my long dream to make my first diver. Okay, from idea to realization in the watch industry, generally, the planning is on 2 years. But obviously, by micro brands or smaller companies, we try to do it in a more compact way. And here for the skin divers, I will say that the whole development process will be approximately 1 year, and that's the target we have generally. So again, we start with a briefing, with an exchange between the people in my team doing the briefing and myself as a designer, looking at the sketches, giving feedback, etc. This first phase is maybe 1 or 2 months. And then we go quite fast into development. That means construction in 3D. That's also something I do on computer softwares. And then the discussion with the supplier we're working with. I'm working with suppliers and I know a long time and I can really rely on. And so the technical part it's always difficult because it's always a lot of compromise, adaptation, iteration to the design. But on the other side, since we know each other quite good, it's also quite smooth. And then we go into prototyping, that is around 3 months, and then the serial production that runs for 5 to 6 months. So altogether, if you have no problem, it's around 1 year. But again, generally, to be sure, you have to plan with 2 years. So it's quite a difficult exercise because you have to have a sight in long time in front to what you want to do, what you want to develop. And that's a challenge, to be soon enough, but just not too soon with a product and matching the desire of your customers. For this new skin diver, we really wanted to find a different, different details, something that gives the watch a real personality. So naturally, we had a lot of challenges. On one side, I wanted to reuse the bracelet pattern of a time companion, but I wanted it to be more comfortable, more flexible. So here there was a challenge in terms of construction and adaptation of the design. We had naturally to adapt to the constraints of a diver with water resistance, etc., etc. But all this was not that difficult. The biggest challenge, because that was also the detail in the design that gives the watch its personality, was to develop the sapphire dial and also the sapphire piece on the crown, to have this complete look that remind us to water, to the surface of water, to reflection, to depth, etc. All this feeling we link to snorkeling, diving, the water element. And so it was really central in the design. I really wanted to focus on it and give this feeling. And actually, it's a long time desire of mine to use glass or sapphire in a dial. And it's a very difficult thing to do because there are a lot of technical issues. It's also a quite thick dial, so you have to adapt all the rest. And the printing on the glass is difficult. The painting, wanted to have a fumé, like painting underneath the dial, which is very difficult, like a gradient. Sorry, I was looking for the word. Gradient, what we call fumé, is a French word. And all this technical aspects were quite difficult to resolve. So here we had to fight a lot. And as a designer, it's always a balance exercise to understand how much pressure you can put on the supplier, because you know it can reach it, and to know when to stop when he's close to break and to refuse to do it simply. Because production is not an easy task. You have to have the same quality and in a repeatable way. And that's a real challenge too. So I'm super happy we have achieved to do it. I think it's quite a first. I mean, there was some attempts, but in this price category, it's certainly a first. And it's a huge part of the development and a huge part of the price too. Just the sapphire dial, glass, bezel, and part on the crown are the half of the price in production of a whole watch, because sapphire is expensive and difficult to work on. So that's the story behind the technical developments. So developing this collection, again, it was a discussion between myself and Kai from the Matic blog, who is part of the team. And he wrote me a briefing. We spoke a lot about what we want to express. Maybe it can feel strange, but I really, in my design, I really need in the briefing to have some very sensitive feeling to have to design somehow, to express through forms. And so we looked for a moment we want to isolate and work on. And this moment was a bit this time when you are in water, in suspension, looking at the surface from below, like snorkeling or something like this. And you feel the calm of the elements and this sense of balance. The light is shining through. And we wanted just to somehow to represent this moment. Like in life, you feel sometimes these short moments of balance because the light is beautiful, because you feel good. And this watch is supposed to remind you to take the time to appreciate these moments and to savor them, because they are the essence of life. So Skin Diver is not a name we invented. Skin Diver is a category of watches that existed a lot back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And that was the way people named diver watches that were for lighter purposes, because at this time it was quite difficult to achieve good water resistance. The technology was developing. Today it's much more easy because we have sapphire glasses, very good sealings, material, etc. But back in the days it was a challenge, and the big champions from the league, like Rolex, Sea Dweller, etc. They had special technologies and a lot of advance on their concurrents or Blancpain. They had also patents to reach this depth they were able to reach. So they were a real professional diver. And in comparison to these professional products, you had the category of skin divers. And it was a lighter watch that was thinner, was easier to wear also on a daily basis, because the professional diver for these times standards were quite chunky and big on the wrist. And so they named this lighter products able to snorkel, to do some light walk into water, skin diver. And we love this category of products, of watches, and we wanted to remind to this. So we just call those products skin diver. But for us, inside the team, and that echoes to what I said before, we call the project Equilibrium, because we worked on this sense of balance. And the skin diver is a very balanced product because it is functional, it is water resistant, it is also tough, but it's also a light product. You know, it's not a big watch, it's thin, you can wear it with a shirt, but you can do everything with it. It's also a very good time companion, actually. So the Asian market, from Japan to South Asia, was always very important to us. We had a very good customer base since the beginning there, and I'm always hearing a lot, what is said, what we have for feedback there, what's saying our customers on Instagram. We are observing, and I mean, it's not a hazard if Kai is based in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Kai is a long-time blogger, and we were in contact since, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And that's how we know each other, and that's why he joined the team. And he knows the markets very well in this part of the world. And the great thing about Asia is that people are a lot into details and knowing the products and researching. There are, I think, a huge concentration of watch nerds in a positive way there. Certainly in Europe, horology exists maybe since a longer time as a cultural item here, but people are less into the history or the detail. And Asia is a very, very cultivated market in terms of horology. So I really love it. And plus, I was always a fan of Asia in terms of culture and landscapes and everything. So I was super happy to have the occasion to travel, to visit you, to visit all the other partners we had there. And I have very good memories of Jakarta and Indonesia. So it's dear to my heart. Well, it's not a secret. The slowdown was great. Situation was tough. We had to regroup. We have to be resilient once again. It's how life is, and economy, and etc. And I mean, this is a historical crisis, but somehow it's also exactly the rhythm horology was always living with. I mean, if you look at the history of horology, there was always up and downs, not just the crash crisis, but the internet crisis 2000, the financial crisis 2008, now, etc. Horology is a up and down curve. That's how it is, and that's what brands have to live with, because we are in the luxury and we don't sell ships, so people don't continue to eat in the crisis time watches, and that's how it is. So yeah, it was tough for us, certainly, but I was also positively surprised that people keep looking, keep buying also, and that's passion remains strong also during crisis, because even if it's more difficult, you need aspirational projects, you need food for the soul, you need to feed your imagination. So somehow it's a hard time, but with a lot of good lessons too. So for the skin diver, deliveries are planned for end of October. We were able to hold the timeline for the prototypes. We had like 2 weeks of delay, but it was quite okay. Production, we are trying to hold the timeline. It's quite tough because I think certainly you heard, but there are electricity shortages around the world. And that makes production, generally speaking, this year very difficult. So we are producing, we are putting all our energy to hold the time lead. And we will be there in Indonesia end of the year for sure. I cannot give a precise date, but again, the target stays end of October, and we'll do all our possible to meet the targets. And absolutely, the skin diver for the first production batch, that is 300 watches, will come with the metal bracelet and the rubber strap as a reward for customers for this series. So you will have both, you can play with both, and it's a 20 millimeters width that is quite standard. Both bracelets have a fast quick bar, so you can remove them and change them very easily. And the goal is that people continue to play with and have the occasion to try a lot of different straps on this watch, but 2 of them will be there, definitely. So indeed, predicting the future is not my only on terms of design. Generally speaking, it's not really my strength, but I hope to be good enough to predict somehow the future in terms of taste, in which I'm doing designs that please customers in the next years, and that's my only goal. But sure, I think the world will never be the same. We learned a lot during this pandemic, also a lot of positive things, like working more with exactly what we do now, Zoom and all these kind of collaborative tools. And even if I love traveling, I think we learned a lot in terms of saving energy and money and polluting less, etc. So it will stay, and for the good, and for sure. I think also we certainly will be more humble, and the whole generation. I mean, I have kids who are 20 and 22 or 21, 23 just now, and for them it's certainly a mind formating experience. Certainly also a difficult one for young people and elderly. But yeah, that's how it is, and we will do the best out of it, I'm sure. And in terms of horology, I'm certain it has strengthened the focus that was already there, that people are looking more for interesting products, for special products. The big brands are becoming stronger and stronger, but the positive side of this crisis, where people spent a lot of time in front of a screen, researching, chatting on groups, on forums, etc., is that they certainly discovered much more micro brands and interesting artisan and all this small industry that is very important for the renewal on creation and the future of watchmaking. So I tend to be a positive person generally, but I see a lot of positive things. We all suffered, and we all lost friends or people of our families in this crisis. That's a tough time, but I also see a lot of potential for the future, and I hope we will be able to enjoy it together and to have success together. Okay. So bye-bye, Indonesia. It was really great to talk with you. To all Dietrich lovers, please go visit Independent at Pacific Place, and I hope to be soon again in Jakarta to meet you in person. Ciao.